this one was opened specifically. It was for middle class patients. That was the original idea, because Hatton used to take patients in from poor families and pauper families. They wanted to find some sort of institution for people whose parents had a bit more money and didn't qualify for pauper rates, and so that's what this was originally set up for. Now, what you've got here, this is from 1869. And what they're doing is, first of all, they're assessing children who might go into the home, and this is saying what their circumstances of their parents were, their occupation, and how much they thought they could contribute to the upkeep of the children going into the home. And you'll see some of them are very young, in fact. This one here, Frederick Hinton Edwards, whose father was a doctor. And it's saying, and he had 6 dependent children, and they're saying because he's a doctor, he can obviously be quite wealthy for the time, so he can afford to pay £10 a year, but obviously other people could afford less. But what they had to do is, in order to keep the place running, they used to have subscriptions, and so people would pay in these subscriptions. Lots of organisations would pay in to fund the institution, and then the people had a vote over which children could then be elected to be taken into the home.
Okay. So who had the vote then?
The subscribers.
Anyone who paid in.
Anyone who paid in. So what you've got here is an election list, and these are people these 3 children who were having a second go at it, so they didn't get in the first time, and they carry forward the number of votes they got last time. Can you see? And then these are people who are having a first go at trying to get their children into the home. And so and the thing about it wasn't just for Warwickshire; it was set up as an institution for 5 counties. So it covered quite a wide area. Though most of these that you see are not Warwickshire, as you can see. You've got some Walsall, Wolverhampton, Tamworth, so it's all round about. This is a register of patients that have been accepted into the home. Again, most of these are quite young children. Now, if you look, you can spot some of the names on this list are recorded in here. So you've got, I mentioned this one, didn't I? Frederick Hinton Edwards, who's there. So he was born in 1863, and he was accepted into the home in 1869. So that's how young he was. He was only 6. When he went in, and then it says here, this is rather sad. When you I've lost him now. There we go. And you go across there. So it says there he was by election, as we've just seen, and their payment £10 a year has been agreed. And then here it says that he left in 1869, it's only 3 years later, and the reason was because he died. So he died when he was very, very young. And then you've got others. You've got George Hodgetts there. His father was a gun finisher, and he had 4 children. And then he's agreed to pay 2 shillings a week. And then when you follow that through there, he was there until 1874, so just for about 5 years. But then they say his condition improved, and then he moved out of the hospital. So we don't know what happened to him after that. It's quite stark looking at this, isn't it? Really, when you look at this and you look at the ages of some of the children that went in there, taken away from their families and then put into this institution, and what a big change it must have been for them, and how frightening it must have been. But also the difficult decisions that the families are making as well, in terms of when a lot of them have got lots of other children as well.
And does it say why they were taken in?
I think it's because the parents decided that they couldn't look after the children. This is a map.
Oh, you've got to be about Dorridge Grove. Yeah, that's where it started.
That's where it started, That was originally Dorridge Grove, 1866.
It's still there, actually.
Yeah, that was for That's
not nice.
That was for girls. No, well, that's the thing, isn't it? These are the different names that it was called over how the names changed and evolved over years. And as you say, the language that they used back in the 19th century is quite shocking when you hear it now. You see here it is again. You see it's marked on the map there. Now that's the asylum. This is 1888. And it was typical of institutions of that kind that they tended to put them sort of out in the countryside, away from sort of towns, and which must have been quite isolating for the people that ended up living there. One of the theories also for having them out in the countryside was that lots of fresh air was good for the patients, and involving the patients in activities such as a lot of places like this had farms or laundries or other kinds of activities. So that's what it looked like then. And then you can see there's another map here, which is slightly later. This is from the 1965 year I was born.
And me.
And oh right, so you're the same age as me. What month?
February.
Oh, you're older than me. I'm September. Right, and there you go. So that's what it's done. You can see how it's grown.
Yeah.
And they've added lots more buildings and different elements to it from the original hospital there.
Oh yeah.
But you can also see how obviously the surrounding area has grown as well. Look at yeah. So that's quite a nice contrast. This young chap here. So you've got his name there. And you can see photographs that were taken of him when he was in the institution at various stages in his life. So he's very young there, cheeky grin. He's a bit older there, got a moustache, and there's got a faded fit picture. You see, he's quite a lot older. And over here it says a little bit. Find out a little bit about his background. So he was born in 1885, and he was admitted in 1906. So he was like 10. And to whom charge? Well, his father. His father was paying for him to go in. And then you got you find a bit more about his family there. He was one of 6 children, and he's described as the patient. So he was the second oldest, and he got an older brother, 3 younger sisters, and a stepbrother. And it says here that he had measles when he was a child, and it says mental condition followed this disease. And so obviously a decision has been made when he was 10 to move him from his home and move him into this institution. Now the real shocking thing in a way about this is the fact that he went in 1906, but the entries about him go right up to 1951. So he was in there for all that time. And when you look at the other ones, it says a little bit about this. These are kind of the sort of medical records, but also says a little bit about some of the jobs that some of the patients undertook. And it says here, acts as messenger for the institution. He can be thoroughly trusted in messages and money. And then it says rather slovenly in dress. He's not in those photos, is he? I think he looks quite smart there. And then it says he's very industrious. So you've got these records going right up to 1951. Doesn't say when he died, but it's in the last entry. It says he talks about he's got chronic bronchitis. So he would have been quite elderly by then. So that's it's quite shocking, isn't it, when you think that somebody would be in there for that length of time. Yeah. So you've got sort of stuff like various royal visits. We thought that sort of tied in quite neatly to what we were looking at this morning. Royal seal of approval, So that's Duchess of Gloucester, and I guess that one's quite topical as well, isn't it? With Fergie, was one of her daughters, that was just married the other day. In fact, this resident here is Miss Beatrice Jones, aged 87. She's saying a patient at Middlefield Hospital. She was joking with us. Congratulating the Duchess of York last Wednesday on naming her daughter after her. So that's Beatrice, yeah. It's noticeable, really, through the history of the hospital that they all seem to be having to struggle for funds. And there's a lot of newspaper cuttings in here about sort of various fundraising activities. You've got one there with the police and firemen, and you'll have a look through here. You see there's all sorts of activities taking place to raise funds, and also sort of stories about the nurses themselves and sort of what they were paid, and sort of disputes around that, and about the discussions about the future of the hospital. And also what was going to happen to the residents once you get to the point where they actually closed the hospital down, what was going to happen to the residents, where they were going, and also the sort of the attitudes of some people and sort of debates about the suitability of releasing the patients from the hospital, and so there's lots of debates around that. And even then, this is into the 80s and 90s. You'll notice some of the language that's used is quite sort of outdated, really.